Hello there, welcome to Radical Self-Respect, everyone. Thank you very much to everyone who's been liking, commenting, and subscribing. It's been great to have you. And please share my stuff with others that you think might benefit from learning a little bit about radical self-respect, specifically dudes that have had a relationship with a cluster B woman, or maybe they want to work on their supplement routines, or even in their direction in life. Those are the kinds of people that I think I help the best. But also, one more announcement. I'll be uploading a few more clips with me and that girl Jocelyn. Some of it was pretty entertaining, and there's lessons in there to learn on some things to do as a guy and some things on what not to do. So keep your eye out for those. But today I wanted to talk about the importance of an abundance mindset with women. And right on the heels of that, I will say, one of the most important consequences of having an abundance mindset is we are outcome independent. Because this is like the biggest base, right? So when a guy starts dating, hooking up with women, and he's got multiple, and he has choice, certain things begin to go his way from there. But when you don't have abundance, and you don't have choice, things begin to go the wrong way from there. So I want to go over what does it even look like to have abundance. And I'll explain what it's like for me when I have it. So right now, for example, I'm kind of in the zone. And things I'm touching are turning to gold. And there's just little differences that I notice that when I have this mindset that I don't necessarily have when I don't have it. So here's some of the biggest ones. One, I'm more able to speak my mind without the fear of them leaving. I know I've talked about having BPD traits in the past, having a fear of abandonment. One of the ways the fear of abandonment used to portray itself was being afraid to disagree. Because sometimes when you disagree, especially in our black and white culture of today, someone couldn't handle it and then they would leave. And yes, sometimes that does happen. I'm not going to say it doesn't. But at the same point, we got to be able to do this. Speaking our mind, and we got to pick and choose our spots too, of course. Not every hill is a hill to die on. But when you don't have the fear of abandonment, because you have abundance, you're willing to speak your mind a little bit. You're willing to take chances and risks and have the woman maybe not like you. And you're okay though, because you have other women. You have other things going on in your life. If one woman doesn't like you, it's no big deal. And so you're willing to put yourself out there and to take chances and speak about how you really think about things. Right on the heels of that, you're more willing to call them out. You're more willing to point out bad behavior and say, hey, that's not cool. What are you doing? And again, you got to be socially calibrated with this too, because you got to know the right times to do it and when not to do it. There's certain things we can call women out on in the beginning, and there's certain things we can't call them out on. For example, in the beginning, I wouldn't recommend calling any woman out on taking too long to respond. That's just not one of the things you can call a woman out on. Now, when you're with someone, though, and you're out in person, and maybe they interrupt you consistently, I would say, hey, that is something to call her out on. Why do you keep on interrupting me? It's pretty disrespectful. So that's one way I would say, call them out. Call them out, and don't be afraid to disagree. And again, though, you got to do all of this in a socially calibrated way. What's another one? So when a woman reaches out, you just get back to them when it's convenient for you. You don't rush to get back to them, because after all, we're probably busy, right? And we have other things going on, and we get back to people when we can. It's not rushed, it's not harried. And that's the other thing. The tone of the messages is still pleasant and chill, even if we don't respond for hours, right? And that's something that I see happens when you don't have an abundance mindset. Say a woman takes a long time to respond to you, and then your tone can be a little bitter or annoyed. And that's not very good. That does not speak to having an abundance mindset. Just as much of the things to do on having an abundance mindset are what's also important is what not to do. and the bitter kind of thing, and being insecure, getting annoyed about how long they may take to respond. Those are all the opposite of having an abundance mentality. And also, like, you're just less insecure, right? You're able to be more of yourself. You're able to have fun because there's not as much pressure in the scenario. Because when you only have one woman around in the dating phase, you do become a little more outcome dependent. I'm not saying it's right to do that, but it does end up happening. The lack of outcome independence is poison for men. Because when you have outcome independence, you're willing to be more of yourself, you take more chances, you take more risks, you don't accept BS, you call women out, you're able to have more fun, and it's just not a pressure-filled situation because there's not as much at stake. But when you only have one, there is way more at stake. Like if you only have one opportunity for sex, you mess this up. Uh-oh. Back to the dating apps, back to this, back to that, and you gotta really try. But once you get the ball rolling, you're in the zone. And I'm not a big fan of Stephen King these days, but he wrote a book called Under the Dome, and I think one of the guys in the show, it was a police officer, or in the book, was the father of a guy named Junior. And he has a little paragraph about how Junior's father would go to these girls' basketball games, and he would watch this girl who would get in the zone. And when you're in the zone, everything just works. And even when you pass the ball, the people you pass it to make it. And he would enjoy watching this girl be in the zone. And this is how it is with women too, when you're a guy. When you're in the zone, things just work. You're socially calibrated, and you just kind of know what's right. You know the right thing to do. And then when I observe guys that are not necessarily socially calibrated, it's glaringly obvious when they're not doing well. Because they're like very abrasive and they cut to the points, but awkwardly so. And it's kind of painful to see. But I get it because we've all been there to some extent. But this abundance mentality is everything. And so remember, you don't always have to get back to women right away. That's kind of another test when a woman complains about how fast you get back to them. No, part of having the abundance mentality is you get back to them when you can. You get back to them when you can. And especially before there's any sort of exclusivity, when it's just the dating phase, there is no need to rush to get back to them. And it's just another test. Women will often complain about this, and they'll say, no guy can do all three, get back right away, have no other women, and be good in bed, blah, 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 blah. But you can't always listen to what they say. Sometimes as a man, we got to know what's best. And part of what's best is knowing how to keep the attraction strings tight. Keep it tight. There has to be a little bit of tension, but you also got to be fun. So having this abundance mentality, which is just as much knowing what not to do, is humongous, right? So to recap, again, it's just responding when you can. Not being afraid to call women out on their BS sometimes in a socially calibrated way. Not being afraid to disagree. Not being afraid just to be yourself and take more chances and risks, because after all, if one goes, oh well, there's many more to follow. But these are the biggest things that I see. And it also includes not having the fear of abandonment. You're you. You're you, and if someone goes, they go. They have the freedom to come and go. But having that very mindset actually makes them less likely to go. When you're not afraid of them abandoning you, it makes them less likely to abandon you. It's kind of weird and paradoxical, but it's absolutely true. And so it's important, though, we got to be true to ourselves. We got to know ourselves in these scenarios so we know what our boundaries are. We know what's cool with us. We know what's not cool with us. We have a certain set of ideals in life that we apply to our relationships, to our finances, whatever. And part of the abundance mindset is we recognize and we know ourselves. We practice radical self-respect, and we have our ideals, and our ideals are also socially calibrated, because we can have ideals that are not socially calibrated, but we know when to enforce them. We know when something goes against our ideals, and we're not afraid to say it. And it doesn't mean we blow up. It doesn't mean we lose our emotional control and become volatile. No, we say things in a cool, calm way. Because, after all, we do have abundance, don't we? But these are some of the big things I've noticed with having an abundance mentality. That it's really hard to recognize what it feels like if you've never been there. But once you get there, things just begin to click and to make sense. And I highly recommend trying to get there. Now, I fully admit it's going to be harder for some people than it is for others, because some of this is stuff that you just can't control. I fully admit that. But most of us can still do pretty well. We can improve and do the best with what we have. So that's my video for today. Please let me know what you think about it in the comments. And I think one of my next videos, besides the clips with Jocelyn, is going to be a topic that's not really talked about too much in regards to alpha widowing. But I think it's worth mentioning. So with that, thank you again for watching. Have a great rest of your day.